Because of the way the universe is created, we each of us live in two worlds at the same time. We have to live in the outer life of our own bodies and the inner life of our own souls.
Hello and welcome to Living the Inner Life. I'm your host, Chris Sheridan, and I want you to join with me on a journey of discovery and exploration into our inner lives, our thoughts, our feelings, our emotions, the sum total of our experiences, and how those shape the way we interact and approach the outside world with all the things that we do and the people we know and the places we go. Okay? Now, it's been said that you can't give somebody wisdom. All right? You can transfer knowledge. You can tell people about things. But wisdom is different. Wisdom is something that you have to experience. You have to do by yourself or through yourself. You can have others that help point you in a direction. But cultivating wisdom is a lot like practicing an instrument or working out or nutrition. You can learn a lot. You can have people help show you how to do things, but somebody's not going to practice piano or guitar for you. Nobody's going to lift the weights for you. If they do, you're not getting the benefit. You will not be stronger. You will not get better at your instrument or anything that you do. Even studying, you can read and you can attend a class and get this knowledge, but it has to be ensouled. It has to come into you. You have to grasp it in some way, just like you would lift a weight. And it's that kind of action that takes place when we cultivate wisdom, which is a lot like a garden, like planting a seed. Now, there's a set of scriptures, I guess, from the New Testament. I think it's Matthew 13:3, and it's one of those that appears in some other of the Gospels. Anyway, it's the parable of the sower, the seed sower. And it's kind of an interesting passage, these words attributed to Jesus, that you have this agricultural culture that would understand and speak in terms of fishing or in farming. So that's why they're using this parable of the sower to explain something else. And that's what a parable is. It's a little story that points to another story, just like an analogy or a metaphor. Sometimes it's really difficult to get direct knowledge about something, especially if it's something new, or if you want to understand something in a new way. Most of the times, it's better to talk about something you do know and have that be the example and say, it's kind of like that. And then you go on to introduce this new thing. So back to the parable of the sower, and this has everything to do with what we're talking about, cultivating wisdom, so stick with me. What he was saying was that there was a seed sower, and as he walked along the path, some seeds fell out. And the ones that fell on solid ground, solid dry ground, were dried up in the sun, and they were plucked up by birds, so they didn't grow. Some other seeds fell on rocky soil, and the seeds went straight down and started to grow right away, but they couldn't survive because there wasn't enough dirt to keep everything together. So they sprouted, but then they died. There wasn't a solid foundation. Now, another set of seeds fell on some thorns and thistles, and they started to grow, but there was so much competition with all the weeds that they were soon choked out, and they didn't have a very good survival rate. Now, the fourth set of seeds fell on fertile ground that was tilled, that was ready. It had just the right amount of dirt and rocks, and it was the right soil, this great environment, this receptive area where the seeds could then grow and germinate, and there was a crop and a harvest, and everybody was happy. Okay? Now, this is true. This is an exact true tale of what would happen if you actually tried to plant some seeds in any of these four different environments. That's an accurate description of that. But a parable is talking about something else, okay? And what we're talking about is cultivating wisdom. All right? So you may have seeds, and these seeds could be great words from philosophers or poets or scientists throughout the ages, writers, anybody who has spoken great words, wise words, and they could be in wisdom tales, they could be in myths, fairy tales, anything that we can experience or get insight into something wise, or reading about tales of a wise person, a Merlin, if you will, that knows a lot, Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay, you have these mentor, wise people that come up in mythology and in our lives. So that would be a seed, a nugget of wisdom, but it's not your wisdom yet because you haven't planted it. You have to grow it. All right. So if you are taking in this information, but you're not really receptive to it, if you have, no, I know the way things are, and this is the way things I believe them to be, and that's just how it is, well, then you have a barrier. And like the hard ground that the seeds fell on, it won't take. It'll bounce right off. You know, whether these are suggestions, whether these are new ideas that you're trying to bring in, especially new habits, because the old one can be so strong that it can be hard. Okay, it's not receptive. You're not receiving this new signal. So that would be like the seeds falling on the hard, solid ground. Now, the seeds that fell on the rocky ground that was too receptive, that can happen too. When we have an aha moment, we go, wow, that's brilliant. Look what they said. You know, this is a great quote or something, an inspiring story of somebody who did something, or a movie that you see. You're like fired up. You think, wow, this is great. And you embrace it. You take it in. You tell your friends. You're posting about it. And this too much enthusiasm can dilute it, and it doesn't take. All right, it doesn't stick. You're too porous, almost. It's kind of the opposite of the solid ground. You're too porous. It's not contained enough. All right, because we know for a seed to grow in the soil, it has to be put in the ground. It has to be contained in order for it to sprout and grow. So this lack of containment, the having too loose of a barrier or boundaries, you're not going to hold the seed in. Okay, it'll start to sprout, but then it will die because it doesn't have that connection. It's not grounded in every sense of the word. Okay, now the third part of this tale, this parable, was when the seeds fell on an area that had thistles and thorns and some other weeds. And this could be in taking in a new idea or trying to establish a new habit. If you have so many other things going on, they could be conflicting with this new idea, or they could just be in competition because there's only so much in the day you can take on. And if you have a busy mind, you have a busy day, you have all this going on, it's already getting the sunlight and the nutrients that you need to really nourish this new thing. So with this competition, you're not going to have as much attention or care given to these new seeds of information that you can cultivate and grow into wisdom through yourself. Now, the fourth part of this parable is when the seeds fell on fertile ground. It had just enough rocks, just enough dirt. It had all the nutrients, probably near a water source. And the seed was able to go into the ground just far enough to where it's protected from the elements, but not too far down that it won't be able to fight its way to the surface when it sprouts. And this is the ground that the seed was best able to become what it needs to become. Okay, it changes once it's planted in this ground, then it grows into something. And a seed can remain dormant for thousands of years. I think somebody planted some seeds that were pulled out of a tomb in Egypt, thousands of years old, and they grew just like anything else, you know? So we have these ideas, these thoughts, these feelings, these dreams and desires, and they're just waiting to be planted in the right kind of ground. And we are the ground. That's us. That's our inner life. And that's the soil, okay? If it's too rocky and porous, it's just going to go in and go out. If it's too hard of a shell, we're going to keep it away, okay? And if it's too busy with too many other things, it's not going to have room to grow and express itself the way it needs to in your life. So these are reasons why sometimes when we try to bring in a new habit, whether it's a habit of action, like exercise, or maybe being more social, whatever it is you want to do in the outer world, personal things, with your diet or sleeping habits, or it could be states of mind. You want to have a better attitude. You want to be more positive, perhaps. You want to be happier. You don't want to be so dragged down by all the wounds and the frustrations of the past and a lifetime of ordeal. Okay? You want to be free and you want to be clear and you want these new things to come in. But if you just try to throw them on top, or you bring them in to an area that's too porous or too crowded, they're not going to work. It doesn't mean that they're not good ideas, these seeds. Okay? Maybe they can bear fruit, and maybe they are the right thing, and you can have this in your life, this change, this improvement, this growth, this transformation. But you have to be able to be receptive. You have to have the right area, the space, the sacred space, the clear space. Like when you go to the well, well is another parable that gets used in ancient texts and has forever, a source of water. And of course, we need water. And a lot of times you used to have to go to the well to get this water, and you would bring a vessel. Now, if it was dirty, your bucket, then the water will become dirty. And if there's a hole in it, the water will leak, and so on. So you have to have the right bucket, let's call it, to bring in this new water, this fresh water, these fresh ideas. Water is nurturing. Okay, we need this to live, just like the fertile soil is needed to grow the crop and have this harvest. Okay, and what's the crop and what's the harvest? It's having this changed behavior, this new attitude, this new habit, this better way of going about things, producing results in your life, real results, ones that you can see and experience, ones that others can recognize. Okay? It makes it real. It takes it from just being an idea that could be cast into the wind or plucked away by a bird or fall on the rocks, and it puts it in this fertile ground where it can be cultivated. See, the farmer doesn't grow the plant, okay? Nature does that. There's the seed, and then there's the process of germination, sprouting, root systems, and then you have the tomato plant or the corn or whatever it is that you're growing can become what it's supposed to be from the design of the seed, and it's destined to be this thing. But what the farmer does is make sure that the seed is put in the best place, whether it needs a lot of sunlight or shade, that it's tilled, that there's water, there's sunlight, maybe not too much depending on the needs and the requirements of this particular type of seed or crop that you're trying to grow. It has to match that. If it needs to grow in a shaded area, then you have to have some kind of covering over this place where you're trying to plant. And then you have to make sure other weeds don't come in. You want to pull those out because that's what can happen. We can start bringing in a new idea, a new behavior, a new attitude, but the old ones can come in. There's a vulnerable stage until it's really taken root and is really growing on its own. Okay? And you can't just pluck out the seed every 10 or 15 minutes and see if it's growing. Some of this is a leap of faith. You have to bring this thing in, and if you know you've brought it in to the most receptive, most welcoming, empty space that's ready for it, that can meet its needs to grow, then you're going to have a successful crop. You're going to have a great harvest. And like a plant, that when you grow it, part of the harvest is that this plant will also produce seeds for the next time you plant. And with wisdom, and with experience, with your inner life, part of the harvest is not only what you can eat and what you can share with your friends, but it's passing this seed along for next year's crop or the next generation. You leave behind something, a seed that they can take in to their own inner life and cultivate and grow into their own nugget of wisdom, their own philosophy of life. So it's not necessarily the seed that doesn't do its job right if you're not planting it in the right spot. Okay? It's easy to say, oh, well, that just wasn't the right thing. Well, that just didn't work out. A lot of things do work out if we cultivate them properly, if we provide that space, the time, the attention, we keep the other thoughts out, the old behaviors like a weed or a pest or something that is wanting to come and eat up your crop. Okay, it can eat away at it. It has to be protected. I know people put chicken wire or something around their tomato plants so the rabbits don't eat them, or some other way of keeping the bugs off your plants. It's a protective thing. It's a nurturing thing. And it's vigilant. You have to keep an eye on your thoughts and your feelings and be aware and be wary of other things that can come in and try to take this or to try to destroy it. And in the inner life, those are usually our own thoughts, our own self-doubt, our own disbelief. We've also taken in the voices of other people, other people's opinions, and those can be brought into question what it is we're doing, just like a pest or a weed can come in and try to take the nutrients and the sunlight that our crop needs. And don't let them. You have to be aware of that. Say, this is the important one. I've carved out this space. There's no room for those other things when I want to cultivate this new idea, to have this new experience. All right? And I guess the flip side of that is, depending on the seed you're going to plant, all right, the right kind of soil and the sunlight and the water and all the things that an actual plant or crop would need would be the same if you were trying to grow poison ivy, or you're trying to grow corn or radishes or anything else. Okay? Most of the seeds like mostly the same kind of soil. Okay? And you need the same kind of cultivation. So you do have to be concerned, or at least aware, of what seeds are you planting. All right? Because we can take in bad seeds. We can take in bad attitudes. A lot of times that happens just below our level of awareness. When I say just below, I mean we kind of know, but we're not really fully present with that when it comes in. Again, it can be these old voices, voices from other people, things that came in from your childhood, bad experiences, self-doubt, low self-esteem, criticism, any of that stuff can come in and really disrupt the process. But if you're planting a negative seed, and in a way we kind of are cultivating our thoughts, we are growing them. Okay? Which ones are we growing? What are you planting? What's coming in? All right? Because really, if you set your mind to something and you back it up with the emotional energy to sustain it and to nurture it, chances are you're going to make that thing happen, which is why I always say, when you affirm something, affirm in the positive, not in that you don't want a negative, which I think I just used a triple negative there. Sorry about that. But like if you're, say, at a party and you're drinking cranberry juice and there's a white couch with a white rug, and you might be saying to yourself, oh, please, I hope I don't spill the red cranberry juice on the white rug and the white couch. I sure hope I don't spill it. I hope I don't. Oh, I better not spill it. What you're saying is spill it, spill it. You're conjuring images of what you don't want. By doing that, you're actually cultivating that idea. Okay, you're growing that. You're nurturing it. You're watering it. You're feeding it. Okay, so try to imagine something else. Imagine the positive thing. Imagine the empty glass of cranberry juice, and you're sitting on the white couch, and it's all white, and you haven't spilled a drop, and everybody's happy. Okay, just focus on what the positive thing is. Okay, even if you're trying to get rid of a negative habit or a bad attitude or some kind of behavior that's dragging you down and you want to change it, okay, make sure you put it in the affirmative, okay, and you can move towards that, because the inner life works through imagery and symbolism. And if you're going on and on about what you don't want, you may actually be bringing that on because you've crystallized these images of that thing happening that you don't want to happen. Think of the thing that you do want to happen, okay? Plant a happy seed in your garden of wisdom. Plant the positive, loving, compassionate, powerful, successful ideas that you want to happen, not the things you don't, okay? Plant them in fertile, cultivated, welcoming soil that is your subconscious mind in your inner life. Let these ideas come in, nurture them, and watch your crops grow. And when you have a good harvest, come share with me, okay? See you next time here on Living the Inner Life.